I cannot imagine a better lead-in to what I'm about to say. That was perfect. Thank you, Andrew. I almost don't even have anything to say. I am in love with the mobile web for exactly the reasons that we just saw, that the majority of the world is connected to the web over cell phones. This is a huge difference. It's an epic win. This is a big, huge deal. Developing countries completely skipped over the desktop. They're accessing the internet for important information on a daily basis on cell phones. The reason why I hate the App Store, the reason why the App Store sucks, which is what I'm here to rant about, is that it hurts. It pulls away resources from changing the world for the better. It's pulling away. It's confusing. Like, developers basically are getting dollar signs in their eyes, in my opinion. And making money is fine, but come on. Depressing example. A native app developer created a translator app for Haitian Creole and English during the disaster. And that sat in the App Store approval process for hours, days, weeks. I don't know how long exactly, but it was a long time until eventually someone DM'd me on Twitter, and within 45 minutes, I made a web app that was available to the whole wide world for free, that was potentially saving lives, at least making lives better. I don't know exactly. But what kills me about this is that the developer, who I'm sure had the skills, didn't think to build a web app. Steve, in 2007, came up and said, if you want to build apps for the iPhone, build web apps. And I was stoked. I was like, that's brilliant. It's going to push the mobile web. It's going to push the mobile browsers. It's going to make everything better for everyone. Unfortunately, apparently, it wasn't a good business decision, but because they ended up changing their minds. But let me just quickly say what a web app is. A web app is just a web page that's optimized for the phone. And it's not complicated. Anybody can do it. It's no big deal, but it's extremely powerful because anybody can make these apps, almost anybody. It's very simple. Like I said, Steve came up on stage a few months later in 2008 and said, I changed my mind. We are going to have an SDK. We're going to have an app store, and we're going to have this gold rush of developers being siphoned off to making, novelty apps, let's just say. So now the difference between a native app and a web app is that native apps are a little bit slicker, they're a little bit, fancier, and they can access the accelerometer if you need that, and the camera if you need that, and that's all well and good. But eventually, these developers, harsh reality started to set in. And as it was well publicized, thank you, Flickr rules. The harsh reality started to set in, and it turns out that dealing with the App Store is kind of a pain in the butt. They might reject your app. My favorite pet peeve about the App Store is there's no good way to do a large public beta test with your application. So if you want to make it bug-free before you put it in the App Store, you've got a major problem on your hands. I don't think that's very cool. So what ends up happening is developers spend all their time shotgunning lots of simple, stupid applications into the App Store because they're just trying to get a hit. Why spend 6 months making a masterpiece that's going to change the world and just have it get rejected potentially? All right, so Google and everybody else saw that there was a big, this is obviously a big movement, and there's supposed to be over 100 Android devices released this year, 100. All right, so as developers, we have to deal with fragmentation. We have to decide, are we going to develop for a particular platform, like maybe an Xbox, essentially? The iPhone is kind of like an Xbox to me. It's consumer electronics. This isn't a computing platform to me. You have to decide which store you're going to get in bed with. You've only got really resources for one choice. Let's be honest. You can't be supporting 2 different code bases, 2 different content policies, 2 different approval processes. It just doesn't make sense. You're going to pick one. Therefore, web apps start to sound pretty cool. They have their limitations, but it's really not that bad when you consider that you're going to be on every platform that has a modern web browser. That's going to be everything. Your refrigerator is going to have a web browser on it. One thing, if you remember nothing else from my talk today, one thing I want to tell you is that web apps can run offline. This is the limitation that people always throw back in my face, and it's not true. They can run offline. So please remember that. Not only can they run offline, but you can make hybrid apps out of them. So they're kind of like 2 things. Hybrid apps, with something like PhoneGap, you can take a web app and wrap it in this native wrapper and deploy it to all these platforms and access the cool features like the accelerometer, etc. So what I always tell people, developers, is that if you can build your app with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, then you probably should, and please do. So thank you very much. That's my time.